Lecture 2 will attempt to answer a rather, one of the paradoxes I raised in the first lecture, and this will be a specific form of it, and that's a rather famous charge in philosophy. In fact, this is the charge of relativism, and one of the things that professional philosophers do in order to display their professional credentials is to respond to the relativist and to the skeptic. Nietzsche has been accused of being a relativist. One form of this accusation is a kind of mislabeling, in my opinion it's a mislabeling, of Nietzsche's view about the function of truth and lie. He opposes that to true and false. Truth and lie, the function of that within philosophical discourse. He has an account of that we're going to discuss. One of the ways that philosophers have mislabeled this position is perspectivism. And the reason I hate that label is, like relativism, it makes someone think that someone, in this case Nietzsche, or someone else, might hold the absolutely ridiculous view that every view was as good as every other view. That is a complete straw person argument. No one has ever, or does now, hold the view that every view is as good as every other view. So whenever the specter of relativism is raised, by someone for you, either in the popular press or in a university setting, the first small thing that should come to your mind is there aren't any. So the refutation, in a certain sense, is bound to miss at least one point, namely that you're not arguing against anyone. Now, it could be the case that my audience today, or the audience that will watch the tapes, I will find someone in the United States or across the world that will hold the view that every other view is as good as every other view. But if I do, it will be very idiosyncratic, and in my experience so far, no. Nietzsche is not a relativist, and I think perspectivism is also an unfortunate term to describe Nietzsche's style of thinking, because perspectivism calls up the idea that, well, I'm right from my perspective, and you're right from your perspective, and everybody's right from their perspectives. And I also don't believe that that's a view that anyone can hold or has ever held. I think, and this is the way that I will try to discuss Nietzsche's paradox in terms of relativism, is that Nietzsche was opposed to what might be called the dogmatism of not only the Western philosophical tradition, but the Western theoretical tradition in general. It's dogmatism in this regard, believing about its beliefs that they were good not only for them and their tribe, because after all, Western civilization is a big word. It's a strange word, there are big words and strange words, but after all, that is just a very large tribe with very large armies and lots of televisions. It's a large historical project, but still it's a tribe, big tribe. I think Nietzsche considered it dogmatic to hold that your beliefs or the beliefs of your tribe were binding on all. That is the way I want to present Nietzsche's perspectivism. In other words, he didn't believe that all beliefs were equally good, interesting, or whatever. In fact, I'm sure he considered some of his own beliefs to be far more interesting than, for example, the beliefs of John Stuart Mill, who he referred to as that blockhead. Or I think he found his views more interesting than the views of the English utilitarians in general, about whom he said, no human beings want to be happy, only the British want that. So I think he thinks that his views were more interesting than those, and I think where the dogmatism for Nietzsche came in was when you search for views that and then develop your beliefs and then think that they should be binding on all. This is not a criticism that you shouldn't have beliefs or that all your beliefs are no better than anyone else's. It's just the further belief about your beliefs that everyone else should believe the same damn way. So it's a meta-belief, if you will, a belief about your beliefs. In fact, I think that it's perfectly consistent to believe a wide number of things with a great deal of passion, and then believe about those beliefs that you could be wrong. I hope that's not a further paradox. I do not think that it is. Seems to me perfectly consistent to believe something passionately, to believe it in a very deep way, and have a belief about that belief that, well, you know, I could be wrong. So the dogmatism that Nietzsche's after runs very deep in our theoretical traditions. I can't overestimate this. It's a dogmatism that has continued throughout what might be called the project of the West, and it's even built into the Socratic pursuit when Socrates asked the question, what is X? And what fills in the X are those famous Greek ideals: virtue, excellence, beauty, goodness, and so on. Now, Nietzsche had the highest respect for Socrates, and as I just said, as I said before, Nietzsche considered him to be an exemplary person. Coupled with Plato's construction of him, they in a way were an ideal for Nietzsche. But the dogmatic part of Socrates was that Socrates wanted, for Nietzsche, Socrates wanted an answer to the question, what is X, like what is beauty, goodness, truth, excellence, that wouldn't be good for just Socrates or good for the Greeks, but once discovered had to bind everyone. In other words, it wouldn't be enough just to believe it, which seems to, you know, what Nietzsche calls the sort of gay, happy theorist to be enough, to just find a belief that you can live with and believe. No, the theoretical enterprise of the West is imperialistic in a way. It's got to find a belief that others then have to believe, and that he considered dogmatic. This, by the way, you may notice, is not, in my view, a relativist position at all, because it's not inconsistent with the view that you think your beliefs, precisely because they're your beliefs, are superior to some other beliefs. In fact, I take it to be banally the case that if you didn't think that, they wouldn't be your beliefs. In other words, somebody comes up to you and gives you some other ones, and you go, oh, hell, those are better than mine. Then they will be yours after you've heard them out, right? So it seems fairly natural that you believe your beliefs. The dogmatic assumption is everyone else should believe your beliefs. And this is not relativism. There have been some modern philosophical names attached to this position called fallibilism, and yet Nietzsche's two